All right, here we go. Peace, everybody. Thank you. I've been off for a couple weeks, and I'm back. And I'm going to introduce my guests. I'm going to add them to the stage. But first and foremost, let me get our guest. Hey,
Hello.
we're good. Okay. All right, y'all. Every time I try to do this on Instagram, it stops me. So, as usual, I'll do the old school way. So first and foremost, thank you everybody. I've been off for a couple weeks, but now I'm back and we're moving the show to Tuesdays. We have some incredible guests coming on in the future. And there's feedback that's not from us, but I can hear it. Maybe. Is it for us? Oh, that's better. Okay. But you'll have to unmute. Okay. Um yeah, Stacey, go ahead and unmute. Let's see how it sounds now.
Yeah.
Better, right?
Can
No.
you hear me? Can you hear me? Is there feedback?
Yeah.
Okay.
I turned off all my speakers. All right, we're gonna have to roll with it. So, well, you know what? Maybe it's my. I can hear it now, though.
Yeah.
Let me stop this feed. Maybe it's on my end. Let me see. Do you hear it?
I don't hear it. No.
Yeah, I think it's better now. Oh, yeah, it's better now.
Okay, great.
Okay, let's start over. Peace, fam. What's up? Thank you. Been gone for a couple of weeks, but I'm back, and we're gonna have some incredible guests in the future, and it's going to be a crazy 4 years. So at least let's do something about it because who knows what's going to happen January 20th. Maybe I'll be on. Maybe I'll be arrested. I don't know because he's crazy. And people don't know that Puerto Ricans are citizens, not like I'm bigging it up. I'm just saying there's a lot of madness about to happen. So again, this show is sponsored by Cooperation Jackson. I really want folks to go to our website and really see what is happening in Jackson with Cooperation Jackson, and that so much of the work that's being done is it can be duplicated. And anytime someone asks me like what we should be doing now to mobilize or get together or come together around this incoming administration, I believe at this point we don't have a national movement. I think we had one and things happened, things were disrupted, infiltrators, people not trusting each other, people not trusting any institution. I think there's been some mistakes that have been made. But what I do know is that local organizing always works. But if we're going to do that organizing, we have to be very savvy with the media and really bring in some of the people that are incredible media makers and directors and producers because we need to shape narratives in our local communities so that everyone's different, but everyone can help shape that narrative because at the end of the day, it's self-determination and us helping ourselves locally is what's going to get us through these next 4 years. So I'm so excited to be here with a sister I've known for like 20 years, seen her doing incredible work. Stacey Muhammad. I'm not going to read the whole bio, but I think you should. New Orleans native Stacey Muhammad is a visionary filmmaker and episodic director who has captivated audiences with her compelling storyline and distinctive style. With a passion for exploring the human experience and shedding light on important social issues, Stacey's work stands at the forefront of contemporary cinema. Known for her ability to infuse raw emotion and authenticity into her projects, Stacey's work resonates deeply with viewers, leaving a lasting impact. Her keen eye for detail, combined with her exceptional directing skills, bring forth narratives that provoke thought, challenge conventions, and Inspire change. Throughout her career, Stacey has fearlessly tackled a wide range of topics, including race, identity, gender, and social political issues. So continue to read the bio. You can find it on IMBD. And then I was just looking at all the work that she has done, at least so many of my favorite shows. We're talking about Alex Cross, but Bel Air, The Wonder Years, the remake of The Wonder Years, Raising Canaan, Queen Sugar, Blackish, worked with Oprah, worked with everybody. Max Wives, I like First Wives Club on HBO Max, not the movie. And I'm not only here to talk about Cross, because right now I'm like fourth binge. like, but Charles Dutton, and if folks don't know who he is, but amazing, amazing actor. You've seen him for over 40 years. One of my favorite shows ever that I wish they would remake is Rock, which was a show about Charles Dutton was the husband, and they had a family and wife, and both were working class. He drove the bus, and she was the nurse, right? And it was kind of the, not in a bad way, the opposite, of the Cosby Show, where that was a middle class, affluent family in Brooklyn, but this one was in Baltimore too, and I loved it, and I think it could be redone. Maybe you could redo that. But Charles Dutton has said of Stacey, what a gem of a director has been found in the discovery of Stacey Muhammad. Her series for colored boys is a marvel of cinematic craft and superb storytelling. The series reminds you of the high quality shows like The Corner and The Wire. Stacey is that good of a director.
Wow.
Right? And she is. Thank you, Stacey. Thank you for making time for me. How are you doing, sis?
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you. Yeah, I'm good. I'm blessed. I'm happy.
Okay, so let's just start. Cross.
Yeah.
Second week, almost the number one show. I've
Mhm.
read so many of James Patterson, of course. I mean, it's a white man. Not all his books, but or a white person. And I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. And then I
Mhm.
watched in like 2 minutes. I'm like, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, it's so different, and particularly the two episodes that you directed, 5 and 6. And listen, fam, don't be mad if we talk about stuff because I already said spoiler
Yeah.
alerts are about to happen. And
It's been out for a while
it's
now.
been on
Yeah.
3 weeks, right? You should have already watched it.
Mhm.
What I loved particularly about episode 6 was watching that road trip that
Yeah.
Alex took with his son.
Mhm.
And it was just like, yes, can we see a father, a black father,
Yeah.
without any pathology, right? I mean, if you watch the show, you might be like, wait, that's not, no. And what I mean about pathology is the way particularly media has always framed
Mhm.
black men and their
Mhm.
families and the son. So um tell us about directing this. I mean, obviously you get the call and you're like doing, what is your process? You get, your agent calls you, you're like, I can do this, oh, they want me, all that. But what is your process to get you to the point where then you begin taping and filming? And what is your process as you are filming with the other staff, production,
Mhm.
stars, and all of that?
Thank you. I mean, the response has been amazing. Yeah, my reps, my manager, Erwin Moore, and my agent, Michael Kalandi at Kaplan Staller will call me up and say, hey, this particular show is interested in you directing. And, so it's usually like a Zoom, meeting. And Ben Watkins, who is the creator and showrunner of Cross, we got on Zoom. I was in Atlanta at the time, and we may have been on Zoom for about an hour and a half. That's just how much we vibe. These meetings are not ever that long, right? But we just vibe. Like Ben is a brother. He's been in the industry for a while, and he really knows what he's doing, and he cares about these stories. So I was really excited, and when I got the call that I got the episodes, I was excited about that. Went out to Toronto to direct. And when I read those scripts, I called my reps and I said, and I think Aldis has said something similar to this. When I read those scripts, I was like, this is some of the best material, if not the best material, but certainly some of the best material that I've been given to direct.
Ever in your whole career?
My entire career. Yeah, Ben Watkins is incredibly talented, very skilled. He has an incredible group of talented writers. Obviously they had the meetings or whatever they needed to have the conversations with Mr. Patterson, and it was a great spin on the story. I knew that this was going to be, the type of show that you don't, the premium type of content, right? That we don't usually see with Black folks, Black characters. So I was really excited about that. I was really excited about the quality of work that we were getting ready to do, right? Yeah, I mean, in terms of my process, I mean, it's great to work with showrunners and producers who love directors who have vision and who are open to being collaborative and open to our ideas. Production is challenging all of the time. In 105, I had this huge party, so we had, the challenge of shooting in this mansion for however many days. And it was just a great cast and crew, just an amazing group of people, like all the things that came together beautifully to create this show. But my process is really just knowing the material. I watch a lot of television, like that's my homework, right? So I go in with the DP. I had an incredibly talented DP by the name of Brendan Stacey, and my creative partner on this. So I went in with references from like Peaky Blinders and Mr. Robot. I knew what I wanted to do with the camera. For me, it's making sure that the camera, that the cinematic language, right? But like how I move the camera serves the story. So like, for instance, in 105, the scene when Aldous is spiraling, like my inspiration for that was the movie Ricochet. So it's like I tell people all the time, you gotta watch TV, you gotta watch movies if you really want to do this well and have references to pull from, right? So that moment when he's spiraling, it seems like he's losing his mind. So for me, a lot of the prep work gets done all of the time because I'm always watching TV, I'm always watching movies, I'm always studying. I mean, I've maybe done 25, 26 episodes of TV now, and I'm always looking for a bigger director that I can go and shadow. You know what I mean? Because it feels so good to learn. But yeah, Ben and the producers were absolutely open, to all the ideas that I had. They were like, have fun. Amazon was reaching out saying, hey, we love the daily. So the more they loved the work, and the more the cast and the crew responded to my style of directing, we were just off to the races. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 2 and 5 are my favorite,
Mm-hmm.
but 5, like,
Yeah.
the amount of people in that party, and it was like, understanding now, since I have great friends like
Mm-hmm.
you or Rakim Mays or Rachel Ramis,
Mm-hmm.
the director, like watching my girl Rachel's process through everything, like I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I never thought it was easy, but then you're juggling so many extras and all
Mm-hmm.
the angles, the lighting, and all that. But
Yeah.
I'm bad at doing this, and somebody told me to stop doing this. I'm going to do this. I usually jump right into the topic, which I should have just been like. So we're going to backtrack a little bit. So
No, that's
Stacey, born and bred in New Orleans, right?
yeah, born and raised, yeah.
After high school, did you go to college, or what was your trajectory?
After high school, I went to Alvin Ailey American Dance Center. I was a dancer. Yeah,
You were at Alvin Ailey?
yeah, I studied at Alvin Ailey for a few years, and then I moved back.
Oh,
And then I was in DC for a while. I had my daughter at 22, so I'm a mother. She's 28 now, grown. And yeah, I lived in DC, and I was like a graphic designer. Like I was always an artist. And I grew up watching television and loving movies. And at the time, early 2000s, there were like all these workshops for people, like Black folks who want to be filmmakers. These are the type of stories that you have to tell if you want to be successful in Hollywood. And I was like, I'm not interested in telling any of that. Blessed to meet Professor Haile Garima from Howard University, who did the film Sankofa. And at the time, he was doing writing, directing, producing classes at Sankofa. So all of my earliest production classes were with him. And I just cannot say, I can't, I mean, come on. You know what I mean? If anybody knows his work, not just lessons in film, but lessons in life. And what I learned was that I didn't have to be in a rush. You know what I mean? Like I was coming into filmmaking as a Black woman who had been in the Nation of Islam for many years, as a Black woman who was Southern, and who had very authentic stories inside of me that I wanted to come out. So I wasn't really thinking about Hollywood. I was thinking about how can I tell these stories? And I was being raised in filmmaking by people like Holly Garima, who took, I believe, 8 years to make Sankofa. So it was like I went into this knowing that I needed to take my time, knowing that I wanted to take my time, and knowing that I wanted to tell stories about my community and people around me, people who were othered in this world. And for me, it was like, if I can't do that in Hollywood, I'm gonna find a way to do it. And we found a way to do it. I was an indie filmmaker for 15 years. I moved to New York early 2000s, went to film school. And when I say film school, I mean like Digital Film Academy. I don't have a degree. I did not finish college. I don't have a degree in filmmaking, right? I picked up a camera. And many of the people who were in Brooklyn, I was like, I have to be a Brooklyn-based filmmaker because I idolized Spike Lee and all the things that he had done. So when I got to Brooklyn, met people like Attica Torrance and Michael Boogie Pinkney and folks who came out of Spike's camp, T. Smith, you know what I mean? And these were like my earliest collaborators. In 15 years, you know this, right? People would see me around with the camera all the time. If it was an event you were doing, or an event April Silver was doing, or an event Mark Lamont Hill, who's one of my producing partners now, was doing, I was there with my camera.
Yeah.
And in 2009, I did the I Am Sean Bell documentary. And as they say, the rest is history. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's where we met when in Brooklyn at that time, where it was also like, like Dream Hampton, Asha Bandeli, Dead
Absolutely.
Prez, Monifa Perry. I mean, like Black August concerts, like all of that time.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we didn't have, honestly, social media in that way. But it was like every day I walked out of my apartment, like something good's gonna happen today. There's gonna be an event, somebody's doing their indie thing. How do we support?
Yep.
But so your entire trajectory is straight self-determination in your community.
Yeah, without question. And sometimes I think that has a lot to do with, sometimes I feel like my success feels like community success.
Yeah.
So many people can relate to it because they've seen me around. You know what I mean? Like I was in that community space. Like I was that, that young filmmaker with my camera.
Right.
So I built an audience, a following, I don't like to use the word fan base, but supporters, you know what I mean, who have been with me on this journey from I Am Sean Bell. And then all the way up to For Color Boys in 2013. And of course, Ava, being who she is, and paying attention to up and coming filmmakers. She and I knew each other in passing, right? And she reached out to me. I mean, and it's like she was paying attention to all of my indie work. So she hit me up one day and be like, hey, congratulations on the Creed, or congratulations on For Color Boys, or whatever. And, but again, that was when the web series was a big thing. So I had For Color Boys. Numa Perrier had Black and Sexy TV. Issa had Awkward Black Girl before she had Insecure.
Right. Yeah.
We were on panels together. So there were like a lot of Black women filmmakers that were like doing their own thing before they blew up. You know what I mean? And once Ava called in 2019, like, hey, come direct an episode of Queen Sugar. You've been ready. Because I was shadowing directors like Bethany Rooney, who's a mentor of mine, on the originals of Stephen Gyllenhaal on Rectify. So I was ready. But it's not about being ready. It's about being ready, but it's about having that opportunity and door open. And so what Ava and Oprah did with Queen Sugar was create a space, create a table. Because I was like, I'm not going to be focused on knocking on these doors, right? I'm very particular about the spaces I'm in because I've been nurtured in this community space. And I'm really serious about where I want my spirit to land and the type of experience I want to have in this work. So Queen Sugar was a dream come true for us because it was a place that cultivated that. It was a space and place where everyone in front of and behind the camera knew and understood that these were first-time filmmakers more often than not. And it was a nurturing space. And for me, luckily, I had great reps and I just kept working and kept working and kept working.
Yeah, and I do know with Queen Sugar, because Rachel Ramus was one of the directors too, that Ava specifically picked all women to direct. And I think that's the first time that might have ever happened.
Yeah, absolutely. First time it ever happened. Yeah.
And I think part of it is also Ava comes out of community, you know,
Yeah.
and at the end that's who you have. But during all the protests with Sean Bell, you were there too, you know, and
Yeah.
you never know when one of these things is going to be like not inspire you but make you so angry that you're like no,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And for those people that don't know who Sean Bell is, I encourage you to Google and see, and also watch I Am Sean Bell. It was really horrific, all the police
Yeah.
violence that was happening when we were there against Black
Yeah.
folks. But this one particular was Sean Bell was at his bachelor's party,
Yeah.
and he was getting married the next day,
Yeah.
you know. And also it was one of the first where clearly a Black officer, you know, was involved, two Black officers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
yeah,
shot 50 times.
50 times.
And I remember I was in Brooklyn taking my daughter to school. She was in middle school at Arts and Letters in Fort Greene. These little Black boys were crossing the street, and it just hit me. I started to cry, thinking about what had happened to Sean. And I literally just grabbed the camera and interviewed some of these kids on the middle school playground. And before I was working at HBO at the time. And I ended up quitting because every film festival I wanted to enter was HBO sponsored. So I couldn't enter as an HBO employee. And folks were like, "You want to quit your job?" Like, I don't know about this job, right? And I quit, and I entered that film into just about every film festival you can possibly imagine. And the following year, I was back at HBO winning first place in the Media That Matters Film Festival sponsored by HBO. And then from that point on, Sean Bell's family was a part of it. They were with me at the talkbacks and the screenings. And that film went literally around the world. It's a
Yeah,
10-minute film. And at some point I was like, this film is showing in Russia. Like, folks know Sean Bell's name across the world, partly because of this 10-minute film that I did. So I wasn't thinking about, oh, now I want to go direct TV. I was like, wow, look at the power of what we just did. And after that, it was like Black women and mental illness. It was like that short film documentary I did, Out of Our Right Minds. So that was my mindset, even with For Colored Boys, you know, where that come from For Colored Girls, right? So that was like what the core of my work was about. So it was a blessing that I got Queen Sugar, because it's a Southern story based in New Orleans about a Black family. And it was just the best project to usher me into television as a director. Yeah.
yeah. And you did 2 seasons of Being Mary Jane, right?
I did the Being Mary Jane after shows. Yeah, I never directed an
Okay.
episode. Yeah, the
I
after.
really, that was a good show.
It was great. Yeah,
It was
yeah.
good. I was
I
mad when they canceled it. It just like I like that it was showcasing to like a relationship with a Black woman and a Latina woman, and it was a
Yeah,
joke, and they were honest, you
yeah.
know.
Yes, really good show.
So what was the big hit? Was it the Queen Sugar one, and then it was like, okay, now I'm getting a lot of the calls, or was it like it just keeps building? Like you might not even have you don't have the biggest hit yet. That's still probably going to come.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because, you know, when people ask me questions about like giving advice to up and coming filmmakers, and I say, and I think a lot of filmmakers say, do your work. And sometimes it doesn't feel like a sufficient enough answer, but I say that, and I always use this example. So when I did For Color Boys in 2013, that series was dedicated to a man named Teddy Van. Teddy Van was a mentor of Malcolm D. Lee, randomly, right? So Teddy Van's son went to college with Malcolm D. Lee, right? So his son is like, oh my God, thank you for doing this web series and dedicating this to my father, and connected me with Malcolm D. Lee. Malcolm and I somehow, some way end up on a panel together, right? This is probably 2013. We're connected at that point because I did For Color Boys, right? The feature film that I have in development right now in 2024 is being produced by Malcolm D. Lee's production company.
Yeah, and it's called The Return.
Oh, The Return.
I
Yeah.
don't know how much you can say. I mean, we'll be watching. Probably things are in the wraps right now, right?
Yeah. But you know, my point is, like, you know, if I hadn't done that work, you know, a lot of those connections, the relationship that I'm blessed to have with Whoopi Goldberg came about as a result of me doing For Color Boys.
Mm-hmm.
You may remember, we raised $40,000 on Indiegogo at the time
Yeah.
to do that season of that web series. So, you know, I did Queen Sugar, and it took about a year to get my second episode. It takes a while. It takes a while to get the first. It takes a while to get the second. But after that, I just kept working. I will say that the cross response and phenomenon that is Alice Cross and the success of this show is unlike anything I've ever seen. You know, and it's the type of content that I like. Of course, I was doing like incredibly dramatic work in my indie career. And then I ended up being in comedy. So the whole point of Malcolm, right, is Malcolm introduced my work to Tracy Oliver. So I did 2 episodes of First Wives Club for Tracy for BET. We're on set, and she says, "Hey, I have a new show called Harlem coming out. I want you to interview for Harlem." I end up doing all 3 seasons of Harlem, 6 episodes of Harlem. The last season I co-executive produced,
So good.
directed 2 episodes, and was the producing director on that show. But all of this went back to Malcolm D. Lee, and the relationship with Malcolm D. Lee was established because I did for Color Boys. So when I say to people, do your work, the work I did was Sean Bell, and from 2009 to 2013, all that indie work, right, prepared me for these bigger breaks. But if I wasn't doing that work and kind of waiting for TV or a big opportunity to come, I wouldn't have been ready when or if it came. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think people are obviously talking about what's happening in Hollywood around content streamers,
Yeah.
companies merging, like in this time, right? Because what I feel is there's always these waves where it'll be like 2 years about the black nominee, and no matter what happens,
Mm-hmm.
we're already seeing like with the Golden Globes, y'all can find one black woman to nominate or like whatever, and that's part of it. But what does that look like, and how does it impact particularly narratives that black women are writing, producing, and all that? Is it always still like the connect that moves you, or is it that people that those that are making the decisions still just don't understand black women and black men and families, or and kind of always still go to the stereotypes of it? How do you fight that?
You just do your work. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I think that the powers that be are quite problematic. I think it's less problematic than it was. I think there's a new, fresh batch of folks that are coming in that are execs at a lot of these companies. Many of them are black, some of them aren't. I think there's a lot of content. I just interviewed with a company recently that does a lot of work based upon, books. And a lot of this work is, centered around women's stories and empowering them, like women really having agency in these stories. For me, I think because of the way I came into this industry, like I pay attention to it, but I also don't really pay attention to it because
Right.
I know that in my mind, Hollywood has been used in the way that it's been used to further the ideology and reality of racism and white supremacy. Like I know what this is, which is why I was never really, I wasn't, coveting it, right? But I think there's a way to exist in a space. It's a really good time to be a content creator, and it would behoove us to pay attention to what's happening in the industry from the perspective of like, hey, we got to get these stories out. And I think that people who are successful should really find ways to take their resources and take them back to a community level and say, hey, how can we make content for lesser money? What are these platforms that we can utilize to tell these stories? You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm paying attention to it because I'm in it, but I'm also not paying attention to it because it's not my focus.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, tell the truth, tell the authentic story that you want to tell. And yeah, it is a lot of it does have to do with connections. So if it's like you got great reps, you have great producers that are on your side, you have a pretty good chance. But we're fighting the same fight we've always been fighting. And my idea of success is a lot different than I think a lot of folks' idea of success in this industry.
Yeah. There's thank you everybody for the chats, and people are saying you show up and authentically, oh, thank you, Ja, for voting for me in 2008. And Ja also says luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Absolutely. You know, and you saying like you're not going to change who you are. I think that's the most important thing. Like people talk about authenticity if it's like the catchword for the moment or whatever, but
Mhm.
that's how you've always approached all your work. I mean, like you said, you left something because you needed to, when it went down with HBO, where most people were like, "Girl, just keep your job."
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like you're from our people, and that's not how you roll, and probably never have rolled in
Mhm.
that way. So in this next upcoming administration, I'm curious to know, like, I mean, you're going to always be working, but what do you think about what may happen, and what do you think about letting people know that if it's something they want to like cover as a filmmaker, or they don't know right now, how do you do that? Like, because I know people are like, how do you get into Hollywood? It's like that's even the wrong question. As
Mhm.
you were already saying, like you have to be who you are. But I am very curious to know from folks, what do you think as a creative person, as a producer, director, writer, your movie, about this upcoming administration, just in general.
What do I think about the upcoming administration?
I'm curious to know, like people I know, are we just, is it like, are we keeping our heads down and just, continue with the fight? Are there people who are younger that might be, you know, inspired to go and put their iPhone camera out there and capture things? I'm just curious, from
Yeah.
sister to sister, from black person to black person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's complicated yet simple, right? I mean, yeah, sure. Pick up your camera, document all the madness and tell the stories. I am of the mindset that the quote takes small groups of dedicated individuals to change the world, and the world, right? Like, I think we need to be trying to get out of Dodge. So that's a whole nother conversation aside from like the creative conversation, right? But it's like we're behind enemy lines. Like, what's the quote? White supremacy is not the shark, it is the water.
Mm,
What's the Nearly Fuller quote? If you do not understand racism, white supremacy, what it is, how it functions, everything you think you understand will only confuse you. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't even know what to do with all of that.
yeah.
I just know that regardless of who's in the seat, and we have the worst option possible, we are always behind enemy lines. And I think it's frustrating for me that we're not always having that conversation, and that we can think that it's possible to, and we think that maybe there's a moment when we're not behind enemy lines. We're always behind enemy lines. You know what I mean? And so for me, I think coming from the type of community mindset that I come from, being in the Nation of Islam, being in different community organizations, it was about doing for self, getting out of Dodge, dual citizenship, you know what I mean? Like just finding ways to reduce the harm as much as we possibly can. You know what I mean? It is always a lesser of two evil reality, though. And I don't know why that seems to be something that we're okay with. You
Well, I'm
know,
glad you said it, because that's how I feel. I'm like, what? Like,
yeah, what are we talking? I'm often like, what exactly are we talking about here?
yeah, because if what's going to continue, which I think the response, particularly during inauguration, there's a call for people to march in DC.
Hmm.
And they were very nice when they asked me, and I was like, absolutely not. I
Hmm.
was like, I was like, y'all, like,
Yeah.
no, why? Like,
Yeah.
it's not, take all that energy again,
Hmm.
get with people in the local community. Maybe you're not in an organization, and
Yeah.
instead of spending hundreds of dollars, give money to some organizations. Like, that's never going to happen again. The great, civil rights marches and the
Mhm.
Million Man March, all that happened 2030. That's over.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
amount of surveillance and just, I don't want to I don't want to say people are wasting time, because I do believe that maybe some people are going, that might be the first time they've
mhm.
ever been to
Oh,
something.
yeah, absolutely.
But what you said, of what Neely Fuller said, until you understand white supremacy, as you said, anything and everything else will confuse you.
Right.
I think we're also at a moment that we have a lot of people who look like us that have
Mm-hmm,
decided
mm-hmm.
to be part of the enemy.
Of
And I
course.
think that's what confuses people.
Yeah.
But when did you join the Nation of Islam, and how long were you in the nation?
I became a Muslim when I was 15 years old. I joined the nation. I think I was 19. I don't think you ever leave the nation. You know what I mean? Like I'm not active in the mosque the way I was many years ago, but they're my family, community. They are, and but many of them reach out, and are proud of me. Some folks reach out and say, "Hey, your last name is Muhammad. Why aren't you covered?" You know what I mean? Like you get you get all
Yeah,
kind of
the whole gamut.
shit,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I'm just so glad that I'm comfortable. You know what I mean? Because people can really, you know what I mean. But I don't think you ever really leave. You know what I mean?
Right.
For me, the foundational aspect of it in terms of community and do for self, I will always, have so much love and appreciation for Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, and for that spiritual and community base for me. It really informed the way I move in the world and the way I move as an artist. And it's funny, I was told many years you won't get work because your last name is Muhammad.
Right.
When I took on it, which is not my legal name, obviously, my legal last name is Malbrough. I have no issue saying it is my family name. But when I took on the name Muhammad, I was like, this is who I am. And I didn't change it when I came into Hollywood to get work. I think people who know what it means and know what it represents, they know what it means, and they know what it represents. I worked with, may she rest in peace, bless her spirit, Nikki Giovanni, on an episode of Love Life.
Oh yes, Nikki Giovanni.
Yes, yes. And when we connected, she said, "Oh my goodness, I'm being directed by a sister named Stacey Muhammad."
Mhm.
And this is an HBO show with white showrunner, co-showrunner, black woman, right? But these white folks didn't really know who our sister was.
Right.
And so many times I'm in these spaces and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity to really kind of be a shepherd over our folks who are on these sets. The black girl on the show out in Calgary, Canada, who when I got there, she was in tears because like they didn't give a shit about her hair. You know what I mean? So you have a black woman director that's saying, it's like, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. What's going on with her hair? It's not okay with me that she's on camera like this. And she had no one to really advocate for her, right? And when they asked Aldous recently about working with a black woman director and what it is to be in that type of protective space, so a lot of times you're kind of like watching for things that other directors that don't look like us aren't even paying attention to. You'd be shocked how many of our folks are in front of the camera on these shows and their needs are not being met. Their culturally specific needs are not being met. Yeah.
So, in thinking about the nation, because so many people really don't have an understanding of it, and it's always, all the attacks, and you know, everybody may have a critique about the nation. For me, which is interesting, particularly when I was a student leader in Albany, New York, there was a mosque,
Mm-hmm.
and anytime something was happening against us as students of color or for us, they were always there. And in fact, when me and Cynthia ran, they did our security,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, and they didn't even, it was one of the sisters and one of the brothers, and they were like, you don't have security? And we were like, no, I mean, we ain't got no money. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
tell us where you're going, and there'll always be people there for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there was, and maybe not an understanding of what the Nation of Islam has meant to particularly men, black men, Latino who have been incarcerated and come out. Like how Malcolm came out is exactly what's probably happened to hundreds of thousands of Black and Latino men cycling in and out of being incarcerated.
Mhm.
But when you were talking, about you being a shepherd, like the actor sees, and it's kind of like it's the energy, right? That they're like, okay, and you're gonna go to them and say, oh, you did that, but I think you could do it this way.
Mhm.
That's kind of the energy on the show was on Cross was for those 2 episodes you did.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really is about tweaking and guiding and kind of helping them find what's already there. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Like helping them find the better and best choice. You take someone like Aldous Hodge, who is just an incredibly beautifully spirited man. You know what I mean? He's easy to work with. He wants to be directed. I look at that scene with he and his son Damon when they're talking about
mm,
what they miss about the mother, and they have that moment on the couch when Cross is playing the voicemails. There's a part of that scene where I remember the note that I gave him. And a lot of times for me, it's like hey, maybe think about it this way, or, you know what I mean? So much, directing, for me, it really is life experience. Like I would not have been the director at 30 than I am at my age, when I was on Love Life, there was a scene I was working with Jessica Williams, really talented actress. And there was, this scene, and on the page, it was about her breaking up with her boyfriend, right? And I wanted one more take with her. And I went over to her and I said something along the lines of, on the page, it's about you breaking up with your boyfriend, but this is really about the way that women have a tendency to sabotage their lives and stand in the way of their happiness, right? And she got it. And that was a take that we ended up using in the cut. So again, it really is about when I worked with Patina Miller, who is a phenomenally incredibly talented actor on Raising Kanan. I mean, this woman is just like crazy talented. You know what I mean? Stage, Broadway actor, vocalist. We were having conversations about motherhood. So for me, it's like, in the scene, the note was the conversation. Like, I'm like, yeah, these kids, they come home sometimes and they got attitude. She's like, yeah, girl, da da da. And before we know it, she's getting it. So I think, every director has a different technique in a way. But for me, it's like all of the life experiences, all the good, all the bad, all the I wish I would have, the regrets, the whatever, informs me and gives me the ability to just have authentic relationships and conversations with the actors. I think they feel that authenticity and that safety. And I hope that I help, and I think I see it in the work, hope that I help them find the best option for the character at that time. I hope I answered.
yeah, I mean, first Aldous is fine. I was like, God, I haven't seen you in any. God, what a beautiful, beautiful man.
Yeah.
I teared up in the one where he calls into the radio show.
Yeah. Beautiful scene.
And the way like he was like it felt like a little bit was lifted off of him in that scene. But
Mm-hmm.
like who especially people our age who can't relate to that. Like back in the day you would call in,
Yeah.
who you shouting
Yeah.
out this one, and then
Yeah.
you wait at the radio to be like,
Yeah.
are they gonna do my shout out? Oh, they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was every weekend, especially growing up in New York, WBLS, and
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah.
Hot 97, but WBLS was always about that. It
Mm-hmm.
was just like the moment where he just sat with like,
Yeah.
I got it, and one of the scenes too where his mom's like, look, you got these kids now.
Mm-hmm.
But just there were a couple times where my mind went like, oh, it's gonna be like this, and one of them was which shows like have to always kind of keep decolonizing like Western media.
Yeah.
Uh, when they're him and his son are at the principal's office,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they have the conversation. He notices the scarf. My thing was like, oh man, he's gonna yell at his son right now.
Right.
And it wasn't like
Yeah,
that at all. I
yeah,
was like,
that.
thank you.
Yeah.
'Cause
Again,
that's what we would always, or like, when I get home, this is what we're gonna do to you.
right. Yeah, none of that. Yeah, and again, that's to the credit of Ben Watkins and his team of writers. They got it. They got it right. And for me, it gives me encouragement about the fact that more and more people will get it right, and that the space is opening for getting it right, getting it better, and get it right. And I think that Alice Cross just represents that on so many levels, right? Like just the pathology, just all the things you're talking about that we usually see, not seeing it in this, to see this beautiful brotherhood between Cross and Sampson.
Yeah.
The scene that I directed with them in the locker room, it was pretty intense.
It was the most
Yeah.
intense scene. Because you could see that is a conversation that every one of us who has a best friend has either heard or said themselves
Yeah.
at a time in the friendship.
Yeah. And to see men stand up for each other in that way and to say, hey, I forgot what episode it was when he was like, I'm not going to give you this information until you go to therapy.
Right.
He's like, what? Like, make the phone call, brother. But that kind of love, that type of standing in the gap. I mean, it's a shame that we
Standing in the gap.
really don't see it. So it's an honor on so many levels to be a part of this project. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably gonna binge it tonight while I write. And also the crazy dude. I used to watch the show Amsterdam, and now I hate him so much. I'm not watching it, which is like
Ryan
really,
yeah.
And the whole storyline is like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, this is real different about what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I also love that it opens up with DC, like that first episode, but then you're like, right, Ben's Chili Bowl, right, Anna Costa, not the Capitol. Yeah, I love that.
We're having this, conversation about this Black activist that was killed, and there's this community conversation, and there's this acknowledgement of police brutality and police corruption. You know what I mean? And even, Alex and Sampson are like, yeah, we get it. Like, this is what happens in this community. You know what I mean?
Episode 1 just really is like, when they frame it that way, because again, my colonized was like, they're gonna make them look foolish, and then this is like, yo, one of the Black Lives Matter co-founder, her cousin was shot, which is true. That's happened to Patrice Cullors, and I was like, I like it. I love all of it. It shows the brevity. It shows all the levels of how we negotiate in this world. It shows the tension, because I'm never rooting for a police officer, and like in this one, I'm like, yes, go, right now. He's effing with your family.
Right. Right. Good cops.
So look, 40 million. I can't 40 million people have streamed this.
Yeah.
And I know that Netflix and Amazon usually don't even release those type of numbers, but when I saw it, like, your phone must be blowing up. Like, I was like, I was gonna see if Stacey could keep it short. And you did. I'm so thankful for your time. I mean, your career has just been incredible.
Thank you.
What has it been like for you? A lot, good and bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm blessed. You know what I mean? Like, really, like it. I'm not very excitable. My daughter's the one that's like, oh my God, Mom, what is happening? Right? I think, again, the way I came to this, you know what I mean? But yeah, I worked hard. You know what I mean? I worked for a long time with people saying, so when are you going to do something big? You know what I mean? I mean, we used to talk about this all the time on Facebook. You remember, Rosa, like, you got it. What does it say? It's not, if it's not in the mainstream, it's not in the bloodstream, like, quote, something like that. And when I was an indie filmmaker and all this, in the indie space was really bustling, but the question was always, but when are you gonna? And I'm like, but we keep talking about this space over here and how we can be ourselves, our authentic selves over there, right? So why are we not putting more into, building this indie space and these indie artists? because you can't possibly want all of us to go over there. Like, to me, that's a beauty, part of the beauty of being from a city like New Orleans, because there are musicians on these streets that are playing music because they love to play music.
Right.
They ever win a Grammy, you know what I mean? So I didn't come into this space with, I need to win an Oscar, I need to win an Emmy. To me, there was always something attached to that. Like my grandmother used to say, you know, if you got a room of white folks standing and clapping, you might need to question what you're doing.
Oh my God, my mentor, Dr. Gordon, would always be like, and even when she passed away, she said, and all the white people who are coming here to wish me well, I'm glad I'm because she always would say, once the mainstream likes you, it could be problematic.
It can be. It can be, sure. You know, but I think I've been blessed so that that's not the case for me. And I've been selective about the type of work that I do.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, for me, it's like, what's for you is for you. You know, take your time, do it for the right reasons. For me, the right reasons has been, you know, that I think these are incredibly important stories. You know, I do this for, you know, Black women who could not do what they wanted to do with their lives. I don't take it lightly at all, for just from that perspective. You know, just the beauty and the privilege of being an artist,
Yeah.
being a working artist and a successful working artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, it's been like I've almost been on the outside of it, looking at it like, wow, thinking about my grandmother.
Mm.
I mean, and how who was a nurse, but also used to clean white folks' house. I used to go with her. You know what I mean? And like, what a privilege it is for me to do what I want to do with my life. And I feel like I'm doing it for her, for my mother, for my daughter. I'm doing this for someone. I'm doing this for my ancestors who were tapping on my shoulder for the story, the return I'm getting ready to do with Malcolm D. Lee's company. So the weight of that, which doesn't feel heavy, is something that I go into every project with. And sometimes people ask me about my process, and sometimes it's hard to answer the question because it really feels so spiritually inspired that sometimes I can't explain it. I see it and I feel it. You know, there's a lyrical type of movement and coming from the dance world to blocking a scene. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
just, it's just spirit inspired. So it was what I was born to do. And thankfully I can do it in this space and still be of service, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's a book I read or whatever that says you have to put in 10,000 hours in your craft to be successful. And also because we're in the same age range, we
Mm,
are now those people that could be like, wait, I've been doing this for 30 years. Like,
absolutely.
and then you think about it and you go, 30, have I really been doing this for
Yeah,
30 years?
yeah, yeah.
And you don't see the fruits to probably like the mid 40s to probably to our late
Mhm.
60s, right? Like that time, especially for us as women, I think all of us at some level hit
Mhm.
like 40 and you're like, let's go. And then you're close to 50 and then you're like, this is me. You don't like it. There's a lot of other people you could hire. In fact, here's some names.
Yeah,
But what you've spoken in this interview is about that you're grounded and that you don't let the visibility that's what comes and goes. And if it comes, is because
Mhm.
you're doing the work. If it doesn't, you're still grounded in what you're going to do and the imagery that you're going to put out for our people. So I am so grateful to have this conversation. And
Yeah.
you know, if you film in New York, the return, can I have a set visit? I know
Well,
I've
we're
been on a
in New
visit.
Orleans, but please
I'm
come.
going to be quiet now on the set.
I would love to fly you out here to New Orleans.
You know, and seeing your process and then seeing um their Judas and the Black Messiah. I'm sorry. This
Yeah,
is called Menopause Fog because I was a producer on it.
I got you.
When I got to the set,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, it was also really dope that everybody mostly were Black folks. And
Mm-hmm.
somebody I was texting, she's like, that's rare, you know. And then I'm seeing the process, and then I'm just like, you know, people don't understand how difficult it is to make something, even
Yeah,
when everything is good.
yeah,
And I that feeling of when the movie finally came out and seeing Fred's face, where for so long they didn't want to make the movie, and then Ryan Coogler steps in, is like, we're gonna do this.
and this is Shaka King, right?
Oh my gosh, chocolate. It, you know what's
Yeah.
Yes, because the way we met up was he's like, "Yo, we're on a listserv together." I went to Black August like when
Nice.
I was 21. I didn't even know there was a Fred Hampton, and then here
Mhm.
20 years later. But to be on it, to see how important it is to have a director that believes in you,
Yeah.
and the art that it's beautiful. So what's I know people always go, what tip do you have for a filmmaker? You said you got to be grounded. It doesn't happen fast. But what's the step, particularly to like younger Black and Latino filmmakers that might be watching now, not sure how to navigate a space where everything is all streaming, there's a lot of content all the time. How does one navigate the industry at this moment, and like a tip for said filmmaker that might be watching?
Yeah, I mean the whole navigating the industry part of it, I don't really know what to say about that. I mean, my thing is like do work, make content, tell stories. These camera phones are like if I would have had a camera phone when I did Sean Bell, you know what I mean? Like the camera phones are quite sufficient to make really good content.
Wow.
Make your films. There are film festivals, there are contests, there are companies like Macro now with Charles King, you know what I mean? There's All Black. I can't think of the name of the folks who are over there, but there are a lot of. I mean, and social media is what it is. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Make your content, put it out. When I At one point in time, there was a producer I had on board. I didn't want to name him because he was not okay, but a pretty well-known actor. And I reached out to him on Facebook and said, "Hey, I'm doing this web series called For Color Boys. Will you look at it?" And he came on as an EP. I reached out to Charles Dutton on Facebook, and
Mm.
Charles Dutton responded and looked at For Color Boys and said, "Oh my God, this is really good. We met in person at a film festival in LA, and he came on board as an EP. Unfortunately, he got sick, and all the plans that we had just didn't happen. But ask for the help. Ask folks to help you. You know what I mean? But and Ava has talked about this as well. Like the desperation thing is what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Relax. You know what I mean? We're talking about the It Gets Greater Later movement that Bev Smith is, you know what I mean, spearheading, looking at Coleman Domingo's career and
Yeah.
how long it took, right, for folks to really, and we knew Anjanou Ellis, who's an amazing talent and a really good friend of mine, right? I don't know how many years ago, Anjanou and I were sitting in a diner talking about how long it had been taken to get to a certain point. And she to me, she's never gotten the accolades that she deserves.
Yeah.
More folks are getting it now, right? So it's like just do your work, it may not be the same type of journey for everyone, but like, use this artistic journey, you know, parallel to your spiritual journey. You know what I mean? The cleaner you are as a vessel, the stronger you are, the better artist you will be. And the more you will learn how to navigate the space in a way that you don't have to compromise anything at all. And then you will be of service to the people who really need you to be of service. Otherwise, I hope you don't make it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Like, if you ain't for our people, I hope you don't get that
Any
second
more
season
fools?
deal.
Any more fools at the wheel?
So there's a second season coming, right?
Already shot it.
Oh my God. All right. Well, you'll let us know.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You'll see, right?
Yeah.
So before I let you go, I ask all my guests what makes you a disruptor.
Oh wow, what makes me a disruptor? What makes me a disruptor? I was born a disruptor. My ancestors were disruptors.
And that's it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's my bloodline.
Yeah. 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 Yes. There's been disruption for hundreds of years, but
Mhm.
so Stacey Muhammad, thank you so much, sis. I know you're so busy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be calling you again. I cannot wait till this movie happens, and I already know, and that you're back in New Orleans. There's so
Yeah.
much of
Yeah.
your life, and also all the artists you get to see and
Yeah.
be around, like that energy. So
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for
Thank
being here with
you. I
us. We
really
really
appreciate
appreciate it. And
it.
everybody, please, we're going to do a show on Tuesdays. And please follow Stacey Muhammad on all her social media. I'll see you next Tuesday with a really dope guest, where we're going to talk about understanding the economy and inflation. I mean, I get why capitalism is bad, but I don't know the other stuff. So I was like, we need to, I got to know why I'm paying $8 for an avocado
Wow.
for $6 for a bag of onions. So again, thank you, sis. Thank you, Stacey Muhammad. Everybody follow her. Everybody, please join my YouTube page, like and subscribe, and I'll see you here next Tuesday. Peace, everybody.
Have a good one. Bye.
All right. Oh, yeah. So, fam, we're gonna move the show to Tuesdays. It's better for scheduling certain things. We're back. If you know anyone out there that you want me to interview, or you know that I should interview, please let me know. My YouTube page, follow it, and also follow Cooperation Jackson on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. Okay, we're making really incredible content here, and we got to get more eyes on it. So, drop me anything at clementerose@gmail.com. I'll see everybody on Tuesday, next Tuesday. Peace.